Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Friday with us. We are so excited that you're here. I am Jan Jeremias, one of your co-hosts, and a little bit about me. Um, for more than 35 years, my focus has been on health in my work. And as the years went by, that focus on health became more of a personal focus, more of a personal passion. And for the last about 20 years, I decided to take that passion and help support both people and their pets in living longer, fuller, more connected lives. I help people see the whole picture of their well-being and gently translate that into a simple, meaningful blueprint for everyday health. And that's been such a great gift to me, and I hope to others. I feel that people thrive in community and connection and kindness. And I share that passion with my dear friend and collaborator, Mary Jane. And together we believe in bringing more kindness into the world, one creative project, one conscious breath, and one heartfelt conversation at a time. And so a heartfelt thank you to Mary Jane for being on this journey with me, and to each and every one of you for showing up with open hearts. This community shines and exists because of all of you. And I know I'm grateful, but we are both grateful that you are a part of it. Mary Jane.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we are definitely on the same page for that. We are most grateful to have everyone here, and this community just means the world to us. We just love being able and be in presence with all of you. And yeah, so I'm Mary Jane, and I know as most of you here are present today know that I am a graphic designer with my own creative studio. And I'm also let's just say, proud. I am going to say proud because co-founder of Spirit-Born Imaginings, alongside of Jan. And we just love to hold intentional conversations and meditative experiences that might invite you to slow down and soften and perhaps even reconnect with yourself. We hope that you find this place is a place of presence, compassion, and curiosity. And as Jan was mentioning, mindfulness, breath, and creative reflection come together really to support self-kindness and perhaps inner transformation. And it's always a place, excuse me, where there's nothing you need to achieve here. It's really an invitation just to arrive exactly as you are in this moment. And as usually I begin with a poem, but we found something, a reel that was really awesome that sort of spoke to um, this conversation today, or at least we felt it did, and hopefully you do too. So I'm going to share that. So bear with me for a moment, and we're going to start that way today and just take a quick listen. So please bear with me. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Words hold power. Use them with care. Before you speak, understand this. Every word you have ever spoken to someone may still be living inside them. That compliment from a stranger years ago, you might still remember it. That one sentence someone said to you as a child that made you feel small, you may still hear it. Words do not disappear just because the sound is gone. They sink deeper. They settle. They become the voice someone hears in their head when the world gets quiet. And sometimes that voice was once yours. That is the part most people miss. Words are not just communication. They are construction. Every word you speak to someone adds something to the structure they live inside. Their confidence, their self-image, the way they walk into a room. You may never know which of your words became a wall and which became a window, but they became something. They always do. So speak like it matters, because long after you have moved on from the conversation may not have moved on from them. And the same is true for you. Your mind listens to everything you speak, not just the words you say to others, the words you say to yourself too. The quiet ones, the repeated ones, the ones no one else hears. I am not enough. I cannot do this. Nothing good happens for me. Your mind hears that, and slowly, it starts to build a life around it. Speak negativity, and you will feel heavy. Speak fear, and you will start to shrink. Speak doubt, and you will hesitate before every step. But speak belief, and you will start to rise. Speak courage, and something inside you begins to move. Speak patience, and you begin to breathe again. Speak kindness, and you begin to heal. You are not just talking, you are creating. You are leaving something behind, in the room, in the person, and quietly, in yourself. Words hold power.
Jana, I wanted to share that with you because it was interesting because we were speaking about what topics and planning and sort of thing, and came across this, and it had such power, and it was a really good reminder of how words build the house we live in. So we just wanted to share that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mary Jane, for sharing it. Yeah, it's interesting when you listen or read something and that's, what you decide to talk about. It's not like what you look for after you've decided on a topic. We both listened to it and said, okay, I think that's this coming Friday's um, Zoom audio. So we welcome you. We welcome you into this space where your words matter. The ones you speak to others in conversation, in passing moments, in times of ease and in times of challenge. And the ones you speak to yourself in quiet thoughts and inner dialogue, and the unseen moments that shape how you move through your life. Because every word carries weight. Every word has an impact. Every word becomes part of what you are building within yourself and in the spaces you share with others. And so today we gather to become more aware of that, not to judge what has been spoken, but to gently notice the patterns, the tone, the language we reach for, and how it shapes our experience, our relationships, and our sense of self. What are your words creating? What are they reinforcing? What are they quietly building over time? In this space, we slow down enough to listen to the words we offer outwardly and to the ones we turn inward. And from that awareness, we open to the possibility of choice, of intention, of building something that feels more aligned, more supportive, and more true. We welcome your voice. We welcome your awareness. We welcome the words that are ready to shift. You are welcome here.
Really, what it comes down to, right? About how much words have power. And I guess it's really, what is the power that we give the words that we speak to ourselves, to others, to the world at large? It's a really interesting contemplating topic because sometimes we don't drill it down to that level. We think about some things, but we don't always think about those.
And I think we forget that our words hold such power. Um, and that's why I think I loved this reel, because I think, it's very easy to speak. And I think these days it's really easy to write, whether it be on social media, where there's no person on the other end, there's no face, there's no, you're not looking into somebody's eyes. And I think people forget the words that they speak and the power that they hold. Um, and, it's very easy to do that, especially these days, that I really find that, and then, or texting. I mean, the other thing is I think that we forget as we write, a short text or an abrupt text that we have no idea how it's being received on the other end. And even when someone stands before us, sometimes we don't have any idea of the impact our words have on, on what someone's going through and where someone is on a given day. And sometimes we can't know, and that's okay. But I think we have to be really willing to examine and to realize and to reflect on, like, how was that received? Could I have said that in a gentler tone?
Well, absolutely, because that's the realization, hopefully. Has some definitely in this climate could definitely use a lesson in the power of words and but they don't just influence the person that's receiving our
Mm.
words. They also influence um us and how it sort of, I mean, whether we're putting out negative or positive words, whether we realize it or not, it's having an influence on both of us. And it's an interesting concept because I'm sure a lot of times people don't consider when they're putting out negativity into the world or just talking in a conversation just to um sometimes for some people just to talk and hear their own voice, but just to put things out there and not realizing that they think that they have all the power with their words. And I guess in a sense they do, but what kind of power do they have? Because I mean, that negativity, whether they realize it or not, if they're spewing it out, it's also taking root in them.
Absolutely. I love that. Jason wrote, words are seeds that grow if we water them. Um, absolutely. And I think that some of what we prepared is, and I've been really aware of this in myself, is the use of extreme words or of extreme language, like the absolute, what they say, what's in the real is like, nothing works out for me, or bad things always happen to me. Um, all these phrases that we tend to say to ourselves. And we just, and it's like, that they're absolute facts and that they're not, they're not true. And how we tend to, in the habits that we have of saying them or certain phrases. And I think they become a habit. It's something that we're so used to saying that we don't really even notice that we've said it, and to become aware of that, or when we say it and then to catch yourself, you're like, oh, okay, that's really not true, and to question it and get curious about it. um but yeah, Austin, please.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, MJ. Beautiful topic. I really love this topic. And I would love to share, since I carry it with me and it's already annotated, so I can go straight to the quote I'm looking for. But The Game of Life and How to Play It, Florence Scovel Shinn. And it's in the first chapter, too. One of the great things that I'll just read two of the things I've highlighted to keep it quick and then move on. By your words ye are justified, and by your word ye are condemned. And then to end that chapter, which this is really the big share, I love that she brought in, say, layman terms. In the following chapters, I will show how man can change his conditions by changing his words. Any man who does not know the power of the word is behind the times. And it is Christian based, so here's one more added to it. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, Proverbs 18:21. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Yeah, in preparation, I'd read a few articles which actually quoted, a lot of biblical quotes regarding the power of words, and basically the words being like a sword. They have the ability to destroy, and they have the ability to build at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? To be able to put the power of words, realizing, the power that really is in them. As you said, they can either tear down or they can build up. And it's really, um, I know sometimes we may feel like we don't have a choice, but I always feel we have a choice in how we approach.
And I also think that sometimes, I mean, I'm really, I had this circumstance, I had this instance this week where someone said something, and I really don't think, it was in a meeting, and I don't think they were trying to be like, I don't know the right word, actually dismissive of what I was saying. That was the way I felt it. Like that's the way I received it. And so it was, when I didn't dwell on it, but it entered my mind a number of times over this week, of the tone they used, and that, they were sort of laying importance on other people, and I was sort of on the side. It didn't really matter. And it was hurtful to me. I don't think it was intentional on their part, but that's what happened.
Well, that's that's the thing, right? Is realizing that, you know, um, weighing what it is that we're going to say to somebody else, or actually just like being aware. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that not being aware, and you're right, they probably didn't mean for it to be dismissive of all, but my goodness, human beings are geniuses at saying things that saying things that we perceive in one direction, but somebody else might perceive in another. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting human condition.
Absolutely. And Jason, please.
Yeah, I what you just said, Jan. I mean, I raised my hand before you started talking, but it just reinforces what I'm about to say, and that's that when somebody says something to us, we notice this emotion that comes up and we get defensive or angry or upset or whatever that comes up for us, but it's not about them at all. It's that something inside of us, whatever they said, struck a chord or with that thing that we heard as a child, right? Not good enough or whatever that is. And often our response is to that person, and sometimes they're like, you know they didn't mean anything by it at all. It was
Mm-hmm.
just something they said that struck a chord with us, but we take it so personal. And it's not about them at all. It's always about us. It's always about what's going on inside of us. And just, to take words from Seamus, just noticing that moment that something comes up in us, and what's the root of it, not the situation that's in front of us, but it's much more deeply rooted.
Absolutely. And I agree. And I think that is the realization, is to know that it was much more about us. I do think that we do need to check our words. We can't, I'm always reminded of the gates of speech. We do have to be aware, especially when we know somebody and we think that, maybe we're giving them something to work with or something to reflect upon. But that doesn't mean we need to, sort of bring to light all the time something that maybe they're still working with. I think we do have to be kind in our nature of speech, but it is a good way to, reflect on what we need to work with within
Yeah,
ourselves.
and Jan, it's interesting because this conversation, like like if I say something and somebody responds in a certain way, and then it brings something up in me. Well, when I said the thing that I said, caused something in them to respond the way that they responded, and so it's like our inner children are having this dialogue that has nothing to do. You see how that, and to your point, Jan, is that being thoughtful and being kind with our words and trying to articulate things in a manner that, and we can't go through life, trying to please everybody else, but we can certainly be thoughtful but in kind with what we say.
And I love that, Jason, thoughtful, because I think that that's usually, like, I look at the circumstance that I had this week, and it was very like it was very automatic, the conversation. So I don't know how much, thought there was behind what was said. There was no pause. So there was no breath really. So, is it the fact that, in that rush to actually say what was needed to be said, quote unquote, all of a sudden there was maybe a, little bit of a lack of awareness on that person's part. But on the other hand, yes, it is probably something that that I'm sensitive to. And I have to own that too, which is probably why I, you know, reflected on it and then didn't let it sit there for like it's not ingrained in me, like deep, because I actually did reflect on it.
Absolutely, because that's important too, is taking that reflection time for ourselves too, right? And realizing not only just the words that we're saying outwardly to somebody else, but just being, yeah, awareness, exactly, being aware of what language we're using to ourselves. Um, it's quite a fascinating thing because I think it's just always thoughtful is a great way to put it, because sometimes we just carelessly toss out words and we don't really think about the impact they may be having on the receiver. And it's just really just bearing in mind that our words do have the power to shape the people around us, in both positive and negative ways, depending on what we're saying to them. So it's a really, it is an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, and and something that I've done, in with certain people who, let's say, I'm close to and maybe I speak to all the time, and if they happen to say something which I think was not in a thoughtful, unkind way, I will let them know. Like, using those words really didn't help, the situation,
Good for
whatever
you
it
setting your
was.
boundary.
Yeah, just like, maybe that wasn't appropriate at the moment, and so just being able to, I think, voice that on the person's behalf, or on on your own behalf, if that's you, and maybe you say that to yourself too. That really wasn't an appropriate thing to say, to yourself. Like, you didn't
That's
need to
never
take out that.
happened to me, Jan. Never.
No, I know. You didn't need to take out the proverbial whip and and amplify what was happening and make it even worse by that language that you directed to yourself or to someone else. Because usually, those are the things that actually keep whatever it is going longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's really in the long run, holding on to that negativity. Is it, who is it harming in the long run, right? It's perhaps not harming the person that threw out the words and didn't even realize with any kind of awareness what they were throwing at you. Um, you know, is it beneficial for you to hang on to that? Because really, in the end, who's the one suffering?
Mm-hmm. Austin, yes, absolutely. Austin, please, again.
Yeah, that perfect to tag along and follow up with that. Um, my mind kept going to, I guess you'd call it a polar viewpoint, but complementary of, awareness around words, generalized. So how we use them, how they affect us, how they affect other people. And I think it'll fit in nicely with this group as well, and community, in that one of the mm, beautiful, to me, uh, polar results, if you will, that can come from this awareness is also like compassion and forgiveness. So not so much explosive directed, but some of it is implosive too, to where like, how, like I'll often, maybe I'm stepping too far away, but hopefully you can bridge the analogy here. But often when I'm working with somebody, it's a big starting point to just have awareness in general of all the moving pieces without identifying with them. But certainly, one of the things I like to drive with people is, if you're the one who is aware of it, you're actually the one that carries, if you will, just for sake of analogy, not that if it's true, but you carry a lot of power in that to actually help more than what you might think you're able to help, not just yourself, but also others. And then certainly in my own, to full circle here, in my own experience, um, this topic, if you will, has served me very well when diving into the shadow of what does it mean to forgive certain areas of my life. Sinking into more of the truths, if you will, and how do they relate to me? What is the meaning of the words has really helped me in profound ways. And reciprocally, the person on the other end of that is also receiving the benefit. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. One of the things, and I love, first of all, the word, and when we get to the meditation, there's a big focus on compassion. But is that idea of self-compassion. And, I find myself there a lot, in those phrases that I use toward myself, and the fact that here I am, I can't believe that, those same phrases keep on coming up, or the habit of using those same phrases. And one is practicing self-compassion, that they're still there, being thankful and grateful that I'm now aware that they're there, and actually thinking that it's quite funny that they're still there. It's like, oh, really? You're still present when you've worked so hard. But it is really, I think, challenging to break some of those habits of, dialogue that's been, maybe your inner conversation for your entire life. But just because you notice it and it's there isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think I used to label it as being like, oh my gosh, can't believe I said that again, and get almost with an anger. And now it's not with an anger. It's kind of like, oh, well, it's just a habit. And it doesn't, if I don't attach to it and I don't spend a lot of time there, then it really does not hold any power. Seamus, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking, this is exactly what I was thinking about. I was going to put my hand up earlier before you kind of opened the door to this, John, is again, like the words we use in our own minds, in our own, without expressing them verbally to anyone else, but the words we use to beat ourselves up with. That really, I think, is the fuel and the source from which we can be more thoughtful and engage better with other people, and feel free to express respectfully and thoughtfully when words we receive from another person land in a way that um identify land in a way that trigger us, I suppose is the word, or cause a reaction. And we feel, if we are better able to be more kind and compassionate towards ourselves and not immediately use some trigger words of why am I so sensitive, or I shouldn't react to that, or the blame back towards self. I think it's back to, I'm looking forward to your exercise later on, your meditation later on, because it's something I've integrated into the heart mat practice as well, around when I'm kinder to self, the world becomes a kinder place to be. And it kind of speaks to this point, I think, of the source of kindness and the source of thoughtful communication, verbal communication, when we're talking about words, comes from the words we use within ourselves before we even get to the stage of sharing and, reacting. And again, it often is a reaction rather than a thoughtful response. So I just love the way you've described, like, the space and the thoughtfulness and our ability to kind of really notice the words we're using to beat ourselves up on, to convert those into more compassionate words. And that automatically transmits into the words we use then in engaging with other people, no matter what the situation, I think. So yeah, I think that words we use within our own environment, within our own heads, are really important.
Yes, they are. We spend a we spend a lot of time in there. And so the language we use, I think, toward ourselves is really key. And I think that, for me in the beginning, was the challenge of like meditation and any sort of quiet time is that language was so harsh that it was really challenging to spend a lot of time there, because who wants to be in a space with like, you know, with harsh and like, cool language all the time? No one wants to be in that space. And I was reading an interesting excerpt from an interview with Krista Tippett and Sharon Salzberg this morning. And when she said that the whole practice of mindfulness is really a practice of the return, of really catching yourself when your mind wanders, or whether when you learn that, when you recognize the harshness, let's say, in this example, and you return, like that's the power, is when you return away, like you turn from that. And she said when she used to, in the beginning, when she used to meditate, she used to say, think to herself, oh my gosh, I didn't have a thought for 2 breaths, and then I didn't have a thought for 3 breaths, and that was success. I didn't have a thought for 4 breaths, and then all of a sudden she said it wasn't that. It was the fact that when she had a thought, she could return from it. And that was success. And I think that that's where what I was trying to say with this is the recognition of like that language might happen, but it's anyone's sort of navigating away from that. That's where the power is, to recognize, oh my gosh, like there I was again, to be aware, your word, Seamus, to be aware. And then what do you do with that awareness? That's where another word you use a lot now, Seamus, and that's where the choice comes. Like, do you make the choice to live there and to kind of go down the self-berating whipping mode? Do you bring in compassion and curiosity? And so that's where the choice point comes. But I think we do have a choice at that point. And that whole idea of, now I feel like I'm the greatest success lately because I feel like, oh my gosh, here I did. I caught myself again and I returned,
Well,
as
that
opposed to as opposed to some sort of artificial goal of not thinking for a period of time, which is obviously never going to happen.
I love that. I was just thinking about, when we were researching for this thing, it was like, a lot of the things dealt with the idea is like and you were just sort of speaking to it actually, is the things that we say really shape the reality we live in. And so I love that you just gave yourself a boost, because those are good words to say to yourself, Jan, that you're doing amazing.
Right.
You're allowed.
It's a, it's a nice break from what it's usually said, or
The self, the self,
what can be said.
yes, yes. I mean, we all have those both both voices in our beings, right? Like that's the way we are. But it's what kept coming to me when I was reading through things and stuff was that is that the power of choice of words,
Mm-hmm.
because there is power of choice. And when you choose with heart versus head, um, it's usually, I would say, most of the time, some people are just immune to it, that heart talk. But when there's a lot of people that don't even realize it's just speaking from heart instead of speaking from mind, I think it makes you make more conscious choices, more aware choices of what you're sharing out into the world. And are we still going to mess up sometimes? Yes, because we are human beings, or human beings, as somebody in our group here likes to say. So I love that, Darlene. But I mean, we are human beings, and we do them, but it's just coming home, coming back to yourself and realizing with reflection, you know, um, I think it's giving ourselves also a little bit of grace and ease when we do say something that might we realize might have been hurtful to somebody else. if we realize it. And I would say a lot of people present in this space probably are aware of a lot of these things, but it's just it's just really understanding that the words that we say to ourselves and others, it's not only influencing our mind, but it's also influencing just our whole entire being. So it's just a lovely um, space to be in, to be thinking about the words that we're choosing, and how we move forward through the world, how we're going to bring light to the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary Jane, because I agree. And when you say heart speaks or heart words, I mean, that's really, like Seamus had mentioned, where it starts, or maybe it was Jason and Seamus, it starts with that heart speak or heart talk to yourself. That's really where, I look at it. And when you start to kind of reflect on it or just be aware of it, it's like, okay, what part of me is speaking right now? Which aspect of myself? Is it my heart or is it my head that which is leading this conversation? And and you can tell the difference. I've spoken before. I had a friend, Kathy, who did a lot of work with for a long time, and she used to, she would sit there and say to me, Jan, that's your head talking. Like, it's your head talking, like, that's not, and, she would call me out on it. And at that time, I don't know if I would have known or even understood the difference. But obviously, it was with her working with me that obviously became aware. But in the beginning, when she would say to me, like, that's your head talking, I'm going to be like, what do you mean by that? Like, that's my head talking. Like, I had no reference to kind of compare it to in a way. But then over time, I actually was like, oh, and now I'll sit there and I'll actually ask myself that question. Or, as you look at other people sometimes, not in a, judgmental way, but in a conversation of like realizing where it's coming from in them. So then maybe you're allowed, or you have that grace and that forgiveness. And one of the things Jason said, like the two children arguing or whatever, reminds me of a number of sibling conversations that I have, where I feel like it's still like, where we, where you took my, you destroyed my doll when I was 5 years old, kind of conversations, that all of a sudden resurface when we're talking about, like my parents. And now, and it's all of a sudden those little, I don't know, little things come in, 50, 60 years later, maybe less, but maybe more.
I'm just laughing because it is quite amusing. Sometimes I actually now, because I guess I'm more aware of it, when I start to hear that little child in me come out in a conversation, and yes, most often it comes out with family. Just putting it out there. It's almost well, it makes me laugh at myself sometimes when I recognize, I'm like, oh my goodness, like really? Like as you were saying earlier, Dan, really? That's still there? What? Like, why is that still there? You know, just and sometimes it's just the silliest things, like I could share just a briefly, just how it was something, it came up recently, but it was more we were laughing about it together. But I was teasing my brother because my brother is the next up in age for me, and he's almost 14 years older than me. So, and I just remember being 5, and I used to very carefully um, savor my Easter chocolate. And so I would put it in the freezer, and I would just break off little pieces at a time so that I could have it longer. And one day I went to get my chocolate and it was gone. And, yes, my brother still has yet to live down the fact that he ate all of my Easter chocolate. But it's funny how that's still there. But now I look at it and laugh. I mean, at 5, I wasn't really laughing. I was quite upset, but 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 it's just funny how these stories in our heads, um, we put these words in our heads, right? Sometimes, and it's just like, oh, it's just, it is as it is. But it's just funny how, and especially often in family dynamics, that little child can come back out. Well, I guess because sometimes I'm perceived also as the little child because by comparison I am, even though I'm a big adult. So it's just funny. I just love
Well,
words though.
yes, me too. We know that about each other. We're totally word nerds. Um, but when you were talking, a few things that came up. So first of all, my story is about my brother is that he threw my doll, whose name was Susie,
Oh,
out my bedroom window of the second floor.
oh,
So
oh
it was
my.
so yeah, it was quite traumatizing for me. Like it was like she was my baby,
My
kind of thing.
baby.
Exactly. Flying out my bedroom window when I was about, I don't know, 8 or something. So I two older brothers that kind of tormented me. But the other thing that you were talking about, and that brought to mind something else, Mary Jane, was this whole idea of family dynamics and the fact that, like, your placement in a family is quite like my brothers still look at me like the little girl as so everything I say, like we were having this conversation yesterday about my mom and the fact that she'd gone to some specialist and it's all words that I say, and she was like, and it's like I don't say them, like what the specialist told me, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, I've said that like 1,000 times, but it comes from a different place, and as they say, you can't necessarily preach in your own backyard.
Ain't that the truth? It's also that, what's that old adage? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. So
Yeah.
it's true. Yes, it is rather funny because I do love those sometimes when I do something and it's like my family look at me like I have two heads because like who are you and where did you come from? Because it's so unusual. But you know what? I've learned to love that, and it usually in most cases it makes me laugh because I'm just like we're all on our own journey, and I know there's lots of important words and things to share, and I have lots of things that I would like to share with people, and hopefully it resonates with some, and that's really what I've come to do.
And I think that's the value of spaces like these is, we find a space where our words do resonate.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we feel heard and
Absolutely.
understood. Kimberly, please.
Well, I really do appreciate your space, Jan and Mary Jane. It's absolutely beautiful. I think the two examples, though, that you both shared today, and I just appreciate the chocolate story so much, because I think that essentially what we're saying, or at least what I'm pulling in or hearing is that it really all starts with awareness of no one else, but really ourselves and our own, experience with this world, this becoming journey. And I love the chocolate story on so many levels because one person could say, you know what, like you stole my chocolate. And it could be a family story that gets revisited every single time you're together, right? Because you could be like, oh my God, where's my chocolate? And every time you see the person, you could be thinking, oh my God, he took my chocolate. Like you're never going to replace the chocolate. Like I want my chocolate. And I laugh because I love chocolate too, Mary Jane. It's I think that's why it resonates so much with me. And it resonates in this family because I find the chocolate, so people better not leave it alone. Anyway, um, and I love this invitation that you both are extending to everyone in regards to the exploration of self, but also um, this invitation to get to know ourselves better, and the fact that like these things will come up, they do come up, and they're just invitations to know ourselves and be in relationship with ourselves, um, and meet ourselves really essentially, right? Because these opportunities aren't just random. For me, that's the way that's my perspective. That's what I see through my present day glasses, is that these are not random experiences. They're experiences so that we meet ourselves, you know and what a beautiful journey it is. So you had me at the chocolate, Mary Jane, today. I love it. Oh, thank you both.
Thank you, Kimberly. I love it. And I think I love what you shared about it. Really is a meeting of ourselves. And I think this is a very thoughtful and aware space, and I think we've all spent time sort of reflecting and trying to be aware and everything. And I often wonder as we navigate the world where people I don't know take that, I don't think take that time to actually reflect and notice. Um, and therefore, spend a lot of time basically spending in that kind of negative space, whether that space is around other people that are kind of like, and where that affects them, or the language they actually speak to themselves. But I think that people aren't accustomed, especially, in our world, which is where we can be very easily and distracted and can automatically get pulled out very quickly and do so. Because like I said, when I first started to go there, I was like, it's like meditate, like it's the last person I want to spend time with is myself. because that conversation and that dialogue was so loud and so harsh. It was like, do I really want to spend time there? I don't want to spend time there.
It's like, really? Like, I spend enough time with her. Can't I spend time with someone else?
Yeah, yeah. And I think something interesting that happens with that voice is to actually realize, like, to me, it's like to reflect back to where I got it from. Like, because
Mhm.
usually it's because someone said, like, it can be because someone else said it to you first and at some point in your life.
Mhm.
And to actually recognize and usually that voice can sometimes have a persona, like they have an image or they have, they have you can give them a name.
You're making me think of the movie. I'm sure probably a lot of people here might have seen it, but if anybody hasn't seen the movie Inside Out, do watch it because it's quite fascinating.
I just remember there was a Woody Allen movie that was New York Stories, and basically one of them was like three separate stories. And one of the stories, his mother goes to heaven, and she like henpecks him from heaven. So like you see her in this like above in heaven, kind of like telling him what to do. And it was, first of all, it was great. And I've met Woody Allen, and quite he's probably about my height or not much taller,
My
and
goodness.
I'm vertically challenged, so he's quite
That's
petite.
your words, Jan. Just saying you're
Yeah,
vertically challenged, but you're larger than life, right?
well, it's actually not my words. That's actually what Bill always says to me, Corral.
Okay.
So Bill always tells me I'm vertically
I
challenged.
love it.
So, but yeah, it was a really funny story. But that's what it reminds me of, like that voice. Like if you were to give it like some sort of caricature, like what would it be? And that also creates a little lightness around it. And so
Yes.
maybe you
Well,
don't take it as seriously.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
see Al's got his hand raised, so let's hear his pearl of wisdom today.
Yes.
Yeah, my acronym for this week. Words, yeah, words the is the world of renewed divine, you know. So when we use our words, we can make or break someone. So can make somebody's day or can even make somebody cry. So words is so powerful that it's our choice, you know, to make somebody happy for the day or make them miserable for the entire day.
Yeah.
So it's so divinely true, you know, that this is our life in this world. That we come here is either to make somebody's joy, happiness, and harmony, or we
Mm.
either make make the world to be at war, like somebody did in US.
Yeah.
So anyway, so anyway, put the word in the chat for the acronym World of Renewed Divine. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Al.
Thank you, Al.
What a beautiful conversation, Jen. It's
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to your meditation because you said one of my favorite words, compassion. So I'm waiting to hear.
Absolutely. So that's where we'll go. We'll go into the meditation. Thank you all for sharing. Take a moment to settle in, allowing your body to find a position that feels supported. Gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or soften your gaze. Begin by noticing your breath, not changing it, just observing the natural rhythm of inhale and exhale. Let the breath invite you inward into this moment. And as you arrive, begin to notice the space within you, the space where words live, the words you have spoken today, the ones you are carrying, the ones that may still be waiting to be said, without needing to change anything. Simply notice. And now gently bring your awareness a little deeper to the space where words and meaning live. And here we introduce a word: compassion. Silently, softly repeat it within. Compassion. Let it land, not as something you have to force, but as a word you are allowing in. Notice how it feels to say it inwardly. Compassion. Now begin to notice the words you often speak to yourself, the tone, the language, the way you meet yourself in moments of challenge, without judgment, just awareness. And gently offer this word into that space: compassion. If there is tension, let the word meet it. If there's criticism, let the word soften it. Compassion. Now bring to mind a recent interaction, a conversation, a moment where words were exchanged. Notice the words you spoke, the ones you chose, the ones that came quickly, and without needing to replay or fix it, just observe. And into that space, gently place this word, compassion. For yourself, for the other, for the moment as it was, compassion. Notice how one word can begin to shift the tone, the feeling, the experience. Now imagine your words as part of something you are building. Each word a placement, each sentence a structure. What kind of space do you want to live in? What kind of space do you want to offer to others? Without pressure, just curiosity. And again, softly repeat within, compassion. Let it become a foundation, a steady, supportive presence beneath your words. Breathing in, compassion. Breathing out, compassion. Allow the word to settle into you, not just as a sound, but as an intention, a way of speaking, a way of being. And as we begin to close, know that this word is always available to you. In the words you speak out loud and the ones you speak within. Take a gentle breath in and a soft breath out. And when you're ready, slowly begin to return, carrying this word with you, compassion.
That was beautiful, Jen. So I just wanted to, before we head out this morning, to share a poem with you by Becky Helmsley. And it reads, sometimes in life, there are situations that leave us lost for words. Times when we don't know how to respond and don't know what to say to others. Times when we're scared to acknowledge the obvious because we don't want to upset people. And yet, our grief is never lessened because someone pretends that it isn't there. Our sadness never ups and leaves because someone skirts around it. And our worry does not dissipate because someone acts as if it's invisible. And whilst there's something to be said for perspective and distraction, there's also something to be said for someone holding your hand and saying, I'm sorry this is happening. It's okay if you need to cry. Sometimes we just need someone to acknowledge what we're feeling. Otherwise, it's like seeing a huge gray cloud overhead and everyone saying, look how blue the sky is. It doesn't make us feel better. It actually makes us feel like we have to hide, like we have to ignore what we feel, like we have to pretend. There's no point in pretending the sky is always blue because in reality, sometimes it is gray. Sometimes the clouds fill it with rain until they simply cannot contain it anymore. And no one pretends they're not heavy. No one avoids telling them they're gray because it would be futile. Instead, we look up at the sky and we say, it looks like rain. Because acknowledging the rain doesn't make it worse. It actually makes us better equipped for it. It actually means that instead of drowning, we put on our coats and we prepare for the downpour. And we listen to the rain. But we do it together under the same umbrella.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane, for closing with our beautiful poem. We are holding umbrellas with all of you. Thank you all for joining us today. Please take a moment to connect with us during the week. This recording, as all our recordings, are on our YouTube channel for Spirit-Born Imaginings. A little bit of stuff that's going on. Yesterday was the first day of our summer series with Darlene, Rooted in Stillness, and she did a wonderful, wonderful session on joy. Next week is Mary Jane, and we're going to talk about play. So, and play a little bit. So you can still join us. You'll get recordings from all of them, and there's quite a lot of information out there, but we can also pop the link in the chat. Our next Spirit-Born Imaginings workshop is actually June 13th, a few weeks away. Can't believe it. Saturday, 13th at 2 p.m. And it's called Hello Summer. And so all things summer, we're having a really great time planning. So, yeah. So wishing you the best week. Have a lovely weekend. Many blessings to you all.
Yes,
Lots of love.
Yes, have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy.
Bye bye.